today we'll also be graphing a tangent function. So for this given function, it says y is equal to 2 to the tan with parentheses pi over 2 to the x minus pi over 3, all of that plus 2. So the first thing we're going to have to find is the parent function. So A. We'll be needing to find the parent function. And the parent function of a tangent equation is y is equal to, and this is the generic form of it, a tan bx plus minus c plus d. And then the next thing we have to find is the amplitude. And the amplitude is how much everything's shifting by, in which this one is number 2. So amplitude is equal to 2. So then for C, we're going to have to find the period. So in order to find the period of a tangent function, the period is in the form of pi over the absolute value of the value b, which is this one right here. So if we translate that to our equation, we get pi over 2, and then if we do that this way, times 2 over pi, these two cancel out, the period is 2. And then the next thing we have to find are the 3 vertical asymptotes. And then in order to find this, we'll be splitting each part into 3. It's easier to see. So the first one, VA number 1, VA2, and then VA3. So the first thing we do in order to find our vertical asymptotes is that the first part for the vertical one, we're going to have to set the argument equal to pi over 2. So the argument is what's inside the parentheses here on the top. So first we have to do pi over 2x minus pi over 3 is equal to pi over 2. So first we have to isolate the variable here. So we're going to have to move this to the other side. Pi over 3. And then eventually, once you solve it out, you get pi over 2x is equal to 5 pi over 6. And then you divide by this again to isolate the variable. And then the x for the final VA number 1 is 5 over 3. Right. And then for VA2, it's almost similar. We use VA1 plus the period. So in this one, we use 5 over 3 plus the period, which is 2, times 3, that is equal to 11 over 3. And then for VA3, it's almost the same thing. It's VA2 plus the period. So we use this one right here, which is 11 over 3 plus the period of 2 over 1 times 3 times 3. That's equal to 17 over 3. So our vertical asymptotes from this right here, at x is equal to 5/3, 11/3, then 17 over 3. Those are the vertical asymptotes. And then for the last part before we graph, we have to find the midline. And the midline takes form in which it goes this way, horizontally, so meaning that it will be taking form of y is equal to, and the midline is always the vertical shift, so midline is y is equal to 2. And now we start graphing it. So before we start graphing our points, we're going to have to graph the midline to make sure that we don't go past it since it's the vertical asymptote. So the first midline is at x equals 5 over 3. So that's here, 5 over 3. Then I'll later highlight this so then it's easier to see. And then the next midline is 11 over 3, which is here. The dashed line. And then the next midline is at 17 over 3, which is here. And then another dashed line. And then we're going to highlight it so that it's easier to see on the camera. And the next one is over here. This one's here. Okay, so these are the midlines here in which the vertical asymptotes, they can't be touched at all. So everything is shifted up 2 units, so it's right here, meaning that the midline is at y equals 2. So let's graph that here too to make sure we don't pass that. Okay, and in order for this to be graded, I would need 2 full periods, meaning that there's 2 of these going from here to up, and then here another one. So the first one is in between 5-3 and 11-3, so we go to the middle one right here, midline right here. And the second one is in the middle of 11 over 3 and 17 over 3, which is here. And then since the amplitude is by 2, we go up 2 units, 1, 2, and the 1 over by 1 unit. This way. And then another one in the opposite direction here. And another one over here. And then another one over here. There. And then we start to graph it here. So we go this way. And then this way. And then this way. And then this way. And then that's our graph. Let me just and then that's it. 2 full periods.